Hola y bienvenidos a Sex and Spanglish, where we empower mujeres to get in touch with their bodies, own their pleasure, and where we discuss all the cochinadas our abuelas didn't tell us about. I'm Ana Lopez, sexpert, future doctora, certified sex and life coach, proud Latina, and your go-to guide for all things sex. I'm here to help you kick vergüenza to the curb and teach you to have guilt-free sexual pleasure. Basically, I'm here to help you have mind-blowing sex without all the guilt and shame you learned growing up. Let's be real. La comunidad latina doesn't talk about sex, pero que suerte tienes because this Latina does. It is my vision to have Latinas worldwide discussing sex with one another just like they do with chisme. Así que, prepárate. I'm about to change the way you view sex para siempre. Welcome back to another episode of the Sex and Spanglish podcast. This is another episode in the childhood series that I am doing. If you are new here, welcome. I am currently doing a series on how our childhood impacts our adult life, more specifically our sex life, because I am a sex coach after all. And this episode is another episode in that series. And today I'm going to be talking about asking questions. So I already did an episode about not asking for things. So not asking, to go anywhere or to buy a toy or things like that. Today, I'm going to be specifically talking about asking questions in general, not really asking for things. So if you hear a little bit of the same messaging from the other episode, that is why. They are similar, but there are some different, there's some different information that I want to share. Now, before I get into today's topic, I really want to preface this by saying that I'm going to be sharing a lot of information here about parenting, and oftentimes this brings up many emotions. So bear with me. One, I am confident that you can handle any emotion that comes up. I offer you to listen with open ears and open mind, right? Just really take in this information and try your best not to get defensive or upset with your parents, because oftentimes people that are parents listening to this, they become defensive, and then there are others that want to go and call their parents and yell at them. So this is just to bring awareness, right? We're bringing awareness to the situation. Just listen with an open mind and really take all this information in. Once you've processed the emotions, then you can decide what you want to do next. Okay, so asking questions. Oftentimes as children, especially in Latino households, we are taught not to question our elders. And we are taught not to question our elders because this is seen as a form of respect, right? If an adult tells you to do something, you do it. It's kind of like the messaging that we often receive. We are also taught that we cannot ask why. So if, for example, mommy says, oh, you can't go outside and play with the neighbors, you can't ask why. It's because I said so, or don't ask why, right? We never, as a child, we oftentimes never get the answer when we ask why. There are other times where we can't ask for clarification. And so oftentimes this happens when kids are getting in trouble for something. I guess they can also use the word why, but I also think that there are other questions. I couldn't think of anything specifically, but I'm thinking back to getting in trouble and wanting more clarification about what was going on. If my mom was oh, you're grounded, or I'm going to spank you, or whatever, and I didn't understand why, I really did not get what I did wrong. I thought I was doing something that was okay. I was minding my own fucking business, whatever it was. And I was either being spanked or being grounded. As a little girl, I was oftentimes put in we had this hallway and I was I had to sit there. And so oftentimes I didn't understand why, and I would ask for clarification, and that would just mean that I would get in more trouble because I was asking for clarification. So all of these happen Because our parents, don't allow us to ask for clarification. Our parents don't allow us to ask why. We can't, quote unquote, question our elders, when literally all that means is like we can't ask questions after they say something. It's basically like what the adult says goes. That's problematic in and of itself, and I'll probably have to do another episode on that to kind of go into that. But all of this is because parents think that it is disrespectful to be asked questions, and because they do not like their authority being questioned. So if a parent says, no, you cannot go outside, and a child asks why, the parent thinks, oh, they're questioning my authority, and then they become angry, right? Because they're making it mean something about themselves. And then they get upset. They get angry, whatever. So when this happens, again, this is not to judge you parents out there. This is not to judge your parents. This is to bring awareness to what is happening. I don't think that parents really I really don't think that they're consciously like, oh, she's questioning my authority and then, saying something, right? Like, I really don't think that that's what's happening. I think that they're just like, I don't need to explain myself to you, like you're a child, kind of thing. Like it's very egotistical because humans, we have an ego, and that's just how it is. We're more concerned with ourselves 99.9% of the time. That's how our brains work. So again, this is just to bring awareness to the situation. So what I see happening when people are raised in environments where they are not allowed to ask questions, what I see is this shows up in two different ways mainly. I'm sure there are many other ways, but this is what I see, and this is what I experience, is that some people show up as, or become, as adults, gullible. And so gullible in the sense that they believe everything that is told to them, or most things, right? They're easily convinced of things, but also in the sense that they don't question what they're taught. In my mind, this is another form of being gullible. So if your parents taught you, for example, that you're, I'm trying to think of something, that you aren't going to be a virgin anymore if you wear tampons. Like, that is factually inaccurate, but many people will still hold on to that belief. They're not questioning that or questioning other things that they're taught because they were raised not to ask questions. This also shows up when individuals don't seek out new information. So I think this happens at like a subconscious level, right? They just kind of take everything that mommy and papi taught them as fact, and they're not curious. They've kind of shut down their curiosity. And this happens as a child, but then when they become adults, like the curiosity never comes back. Like, children are fucking curious. That's why they're asking you these questions to begin with. But then as adults, we're just like, okay, yeah, I heard it. It's probably true. It sounds accurate, right? That kind of thing. We don't seek out more information. We kind of don't build these critical thinking skills. And so then we oftentimes don't seek out more information about a topic just because, and of course, this is only my opinion, I think it's because if we learn more information, let's say about tampons, going back to that example, if we learn more information about tampons and about virginity, then it's going to go against what mommy and papi said. And then we'll begin to question them, even if it's only in our mind. And we associate questioning our elders with getting in trouble. And so it creates this like response in our body of like, oh shit, like of being scared or being anxious, right? We also don't question or don't seek out new ways to do things just because it's like, oh, like this is what we do. This is what we've always done. And what I see in many elders in the Latino community, specifically the ones that like I know, again, this is only my experience, but it's very kind of like, oh, like this is what we do. It's very traditional. You know, we just pass on these maneras de hacer las cosas. Así lo hacemos y ya, right? It's kind of like, this is just what we do. And like, we don't really, we're not innovative. We're not critically thinking about these things. And so this is kind of how it shows up. Another way that I see that it show up is people pleasing. And so this can show up in like doing the things that you don't want to do, right? Like, so your husband, let's say, or your partner, wants to do a certain position. Let's say he wants to do doggy style and you fucking hate doggy style. You don't want to be on your knees. It hurts your wrists. Like, you hate not being looked at, whatever it is. You don't want to do it, but you do it anyway because you know that he wants to, right? He asks you, so you're like, okay. And you don't even tell him that you don't like it. Or you agree to something that you don't want to do, right? So oftentimes this happens is like a woman will not want to give her partner head, but she does it anyways because she knows that he's going to like it, or like that specific person, right? Like, oh, I know he's going to like it, so I'm going to do it anyway, even though I don't want to do it. And a lot of times this is posed as like, oh, this is just like something that you do when, you have a partner, you want to please them. No, that is people pleasing. You don't do it simply because they want to do it. Like, there is a line that you need to draw. So if this is something that you don't want to do, if you do not want to give head and you do not like it, you do not enjoy it, then guess what? You don't have to fucking do it just because your partner likes it. That is totally wrong. But anyways, that's how it shows up. And I want to dive into a little bit more about, these two things about being gullible and people pleasing and how it impacts our sex life. So the following things are the main things that I see with my clients. And again, this is only like examples, right? There are probably many more. But the things that I see is that I will share fun facts with my clients about the body, about sex, and they kind of don't believe them. Like, even though they're like actual factual information. And I'm not saying that you have to believe and agree with everything that I say with 100% certainty. But when you just deny it because it goes against what you were told as a child, then that is where the problem lies. Because that means that if you do that, you will also hold on to beliefs that do not serve you. So if I tell you that, women can orgasm, every single woman has the ability and the capacity to orgasm, and you were told as a child that women's pleasure does not matter, then you're probably not going to orgasm because you're not going to focus on your own pleasure. See where I'm going here? And this is just one example. Again, this can show up in many different places. Another way that it shows up is that you don't make changes in your life for fear of what mommy and papi will say. So this shows up in things like dressing the way that you want to dress. Maybe leaving your longtime boyfriend or husband or the father of your children, right? There are changes that you desperately want to make, but you don't do them simply because you don't want to deal with the naysayers, with people talking, which they're talking anyway, so it doesn't fucking matter. But this is how it shows up. When we're not allowed to ask questions as children, this is kind of how it shows up as an adult. And the last most common thing that I see is the doing the sexual acts you don't want to do. I know I already kind of touched on this, but again, like, do something because you want to do it, not simply because you think you have to, or doing it because your husband or your partner is going to like it, or you think that this is how you're going to keep him from cheating on you, or whatever it is. Do it because you want to do it, not because you think you have to. So you've gotten this far in this episode and you're like, fuck, I wasn't allowed to ask questions. I don't allow my kids to ask questions. What do I do? And it's simple. Just start asking questions. If you have children, ask them questions. Allow them to ask you questions and answer honestly, and genuinely. If you find yourself like in this situation where you're like, fuck, like I don't know how to ask questions, like all these things, then start asking yourself questions. So if you have a belief about something, or it could be even as simple as questioning, like, I don't know, like the fucking color purple. And it doesn't matter. It could be anything. Like asking yourself why. Just continually questioning why you do something, why you believe things, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to change it. It's just bringing up that curiosity. Research a subject that you really enjoy, right? Like, and go to the fucking library, like, use credible sources, but like really, like, if you're really into, I don't know, gardening or something, get a book on gardening, look up online, like about a plant that you like or whatever it is. Just get curious and think about how kids are, right? When they're playing, they're just like so curious about everything. Start to bring back that curiosity in your own life as an adult, and this will change the way that you live forever. This is all that I have for you on this episode. I will see y'all on the next episode. If you like what you heard, be sure to hit the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes are released. Join me every week to hear me talk about orgasms, STIs, birth control, and all the other cochinadas your abuela didn't tell you about. But that's not all. We'll also discuss machismo, la tía metiche, and sexual stories from other Latinas just like you. And if you're ready to start spicing up your sex life tonight, then be sure to download my free ebook, Spice It Up con la Sex Coach. You'll find the link to download it in the show notes. Do you have an idea for a podcast episode? Send me a text at 669-200-9269 and tell me all about it. And finally, let's keep in touch. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Sex in Spanglish. Be sure to follow me and let me know you heard this episode. Espero verte pronto.